On Thursday the 11th of September 2015, shortly after midnight, Police Constable Catherine Campbell would order a taxi and travel a short distance from her apartment in Dartmouth to the Halifax Ale House. This was not a common occurrence for Catherine. However, it is likely she was just looking for a wind down after a busy working week. It was in the Halifax Ale House where she would meet a man named Christopher Garnier. The pair spent the next 3 hours together, and as showcased by both CCTV and witness testimonies, they became intimate together. The pair ordered a second taxi for 2 at 3:15 AM. The taxi driver would later testify that he couldn't hear their conversation. However, he did state that he could sense tension in the air. The reason why the taxi driver believed there was tension was due to the fact voices were raised in what seemed to him like an argumentative manner. The pair exited the taxi at approximately 3:22 AM and entered the apartment that Chris was staying in at the time. The trail then goes cold until 4:45 AM. At 4:45, Chris Garnier was sighted by 3 witnesses leaving the apartment. All 3 witnesses stated that they normally wouldn't take notice of this detail. However, this man was peculiar, as he had no footwear on at all. He was then picked up by a CCTV camera located 54 yards away from the apartment, pulling a green bin. On the 13th of April, Catherine's colleague and friend reported her missing. 2 days later, the police had uncovered Catherine's last steps, searched the surrounding areas of Christopher's apartment, and the route of his late-night walk. Finally, Catherine's body was recovered. She had injuries to her nose and eyes, but the autopsy revealed that she died of strangulation. Catherine was found under an overpass. A large wooden box was placed on top of her lifeless body in an attempt to conceal it. The surrounding areas were searched thoroughly, and as a result of this search, Catherine's key was found in a recycling bin nearby. Christopher Garnier was arrested while driving his car soon after these discoveries. Multiple items of interest were found in Christopher's car, including a half-full gas canister, tarp, rope, and a blanket. Also a backpack containing a hoodie, 3 t-shirts, sandals, pants, toiletries, passport, a deck of cards, and 2 boxes of antidepressants. The prosecution will go on to propose the notion that Christopher intended to dispose of Catherine using the gasoline and tarp, and then flee the country. While Christopher was in custody, the police took the opportunity to search the apartment. Blood was found on a Kleenex box, on the back of the TV, the handle to a cupboard, and minuscule droplets on the floor. All of the bloodstains matched Catherine Campbell's. Christopher was interrogated and confronted once all of the evidence had been established. Unfortunately, only specific segments of the interrogation were released into the public domain. However, there is enough footage to analyze.
Is it that you don't remember or you don't want to remember?
I don't remember.
What do you remember? After she paid for the cab, what do you remember?
Christopher had been subjected to interrogation for 8 hours. Fatigue and other overwhelming and debilitating emotions have already set in. However, what is vital is how these emotions were created and what process the detectives took to create this tense atmosphere. The detectives decided to confront Chris with the evidence in the form of photos. Using a physical representation of the evidence has many benefits, including demoralizing the suspect. But an important aspect of this process is not what was presented, but instead how the evidence was presented. The detectives decided to systematically introduce new pieces of evidence and photos, one after another, with a time interval in between each reveal. Introducing evidence in this manner means that the suspect never has the opportunity to rest and is constantly anxious about what is to come, all further emphasizing the futility of his situation and depleting the suspect's cerebral stamina. A staggering example of this process can be seen in the infamous case of the Grim Sleeper. Lonnie J. Franklin's interrogation shows him being confronted with all 12 of his victims in the same manner previously mentioned.
We have been investigating a murder that occurred in 2007. Okay? And it involves a young lady. And I'm going to ask you, show you a photograph of this young lady and see if you recognize her. You've never seen that girl before? No, I haven't. Okay, in 2003, this young lady was found killed. Have you ever seen her? No, I haven't. Okay, 2002, this young lady was found. Do you recognize her? No. Princess. No. You've never seen her before? In 1988, this young lady, Felicia Alexander. This young lady, Lucretia Jefferson. No. This young lady here, Mary Lowe was her name. No, I don't know her. This young lady here, her name is Bernita Sparks. Wow, she looked babysit. Why? No, you said she looked fat. You don't own any other handgun? No. This young lady here. Name is Barbara Ware. Never saw her before. No, nothing about it. Just straight up. This young lady, her name is Henrietta Wright. Go ahead, take a close look. No recollection at all. This young lady, Deborah Jackson.
Is it that you don't remember or you don't want to remember?
I don't remember.
What do you remember? After she paid for the cab, what do you remember? Chris, do you see what's going on here? Did you, when you put her down there, were you hoping somebody would find her like I talked about earlier? Chris, when you put her down there, were you hoping that somebody would find her? How can somebody, like, if I ran over a dog, I'd feel bad. How can somebody do something like this and then all weekend you act normal, have sex with your girlfriend, go to your father's birthday party, and everybody says, oh no, you act like always?
Chris's current defense is that he can't remember actually committing the crime, and he was highly intoxicated at the time of the murder. He argues that the time he spent in the Halifax alehouse and the alcohol he consumed has affected his memory, leaving it blank during the hours in question. It is true that alcohol can affect one's memory and invoke memory loss. This is due to the fact the hippocampus plays a significant role in forming and retaining memories. Consuming alcohol can slow down the nerve activity within this section of the brain. However, for memory loss on this scale, copious amounts of alcohol must have been consumed in a limited time frame, and taking into account the videos of Chris steadily walking during the period in question, it is extremely unlikely this story is true. This is most likely a ploy for the suspect to avoid the confrontation and the inevitable admission. Nevertheless, the defense team could use this excuse to argue against a first-degree murder charge, and instead suggest it was an out-of-character rush of blood that was brought on by the alcohol consumed. The detectives must try to disprove this argument, and one way they could do this is to ask Chris less incriminating questions about the night. Christopher may answer these questions truthfully, as he isn't fearful of the consequences. Obtaining these answers would show to a jury that Chris does not in fact have memory loss, but instead is selecting which memories to confess and which to conceal.
Then you're driving around, you're changing stuff around, you're out trying to... You were going to go and do something with her body.
I don't know what I was going to do.
Okay, well, the stuff you had in your car, what was that for?
Well, I had my bag because I wasn't sure if I was going to leave or not.
Right. What else?
Well, but the tarp and gas, it could have been for one or two things.
Which were what? That's what I'm saying, Chris. What were those things for? What did you have this for? You know what you had them for. You were going back down there to get her.
I thought about it.
The next moment is a prime example of the effects of mental fatigue on a suspect. Christopher has been placed under the pressure of interrogation for longer than 8 hours, and the toll that takes on a suspect's stamina and willpower is enormous. This can be seen in the suspect's actions and comments, especially when he says, "I thought about it," in relation to the disposing of Catherine's remains.
Yes, you were. And then what were you going to do with the gasoline?
Well,
Chris, let's stop playing this game, okay? Seriously. You knew what you were going to do. If there hadn't been anybody around there, you would have went down and did that.
I don't think I could have. I drove by there before.
Yes, I know you drove by there before. Oh, was she? Tell me that she wasn't still alive when she was put in that that compost bin. Was she still alive when she was put in that compost bin?
No.
She didn't suffer in there? She didn't suffer when you threw her down over that bank? She was dead? How do you know she was dead?
I think she was.
How do you know that? How do you know that? Did you tell me that she was not alive when you stuffed her in there? How do you know that she wasn't alive?
She wasn't moving.
You're a paramedic. How do you know that she was not alive?
She wasn't breathing.
She wasn't breathing? Like, how do you know that? Did you get down? Did you feel close to her face? You know, because some people, you know, you're a paramedic. You can get down close to somebody, they might have faint breaths.
I don't know.
Chris, when you put her in there, she wasn't alive. 100% you know that.
This line of questioning is just another way of asking how he murdered Catherine. However, asking for specific details like these can help to disprove his memory excuse.
Don, you're telling me 100% that she wasn't alive?
I think.
Was she making any noises? Did she suffer? Did she suffer, Chris?
I don't think.
How? Like I can understand how some of those other things happened and what happened, but please tell me that she was not alive. I need to know. Everybody's going to need to know. You're telling me that she was. And you said she wasn't breathing? She wasn't making any noises? Did you check her pulse or anything like that to make sure she didn't have a pulse? Didn't? Because if you had told me that she was still alive when that happened, that would... I don't know if I could still be in the same room with you, but... Okay? Okay. So did she suffer? How do you know she didn't suffer?
I don't know.
I guess what I'm saying is, did she suffer? If you're telling me that she was dead, you're certain that she was dead when you put her in the compost bin. Okay, how do you know she didn't suffer? Like how did it end? So was it over quick? Is what I'm saying.
The detectives have implemented a technique commonly referred to as good cop, bad cop. This is made evident by the male detective's aggressive and stern tone, and the female detective's softer tone. The female detective also makes use of physical touch to comfort Chris throughout the interrogation. The theory behind the good cop, bad cop approach is that the constant switching between each detective and the contrast in emotions will confuse the suspect and over time take a heavy toll on the suspect's ability to critically think and affect their mental strength.
I think so.
Chris, how do you know that you think it was over quick? You're a paramedic, you're a firefighter, you know anatomy, you know how people's bodies work.
She wasn't moving, or she wasn't breathing.
What happened that she got to that point where she's going into a compost bin?
I can't even remember getting back to Mitch's place.
Do you remember the cab drive though, somewhat? Do you remember going into the house? I mean, she paid for the cab, so obviously, if she paid for the cab, Chris, I mean, she could have said to the cab, "Just take me out of here." She wanted to go back there, so you didn't drag her into the house. That's what I'm saying. You did not drag her into the house. Okay, you can tell me that you told me, you assured me, and I'm hoping you told me that she wasn't alive, and you put her in the compost bin, right? And you know that that's the case because you said she wasn't breathing, she wasn't moving, she wasn't saying anything, right? Appreciate you saying you couldn't remember what happened when you got back, how you got back, or whatever to the house.
The detective uses silence to their advantage and rarely interjects, unless it is to keep the suspect on topic. Silence used correctly can work to heighten tension to a point where it becomes unbearable. The suspect will then divulge more and more information in order to end their torment and gain some relief. This relief usually comes in the form of reassurance. A massive benefit of the silence approach is that the detectives can choose when to end the technique, and this will only happen if the information that the suspect divulges is deemed to be of a good enough standard. A suspect will usually start with admitting to smaller details, and as they realize that the details are not enough to end the silence, they will progress into more major admissions.
I don't even remember most of the conversation when we were at the old house. I remember being by the front doors. I remember Mitchell was down by the bar, and I went to talk to him, and then that was the last time I seen him. I can't remember who approached who, or how many times we went outside. I know we went outside. I was talking to one of the workers there. I'm not sure what time we got in the cab. I don't remember getting in the cab. And I don't even remember how we got inside, but it must have been unlocked because I didn't have the key on me then. I'm trying to remember. I remember her being on the bed, or the pillow. And she was bleeding. I don't remember what happened.
Where was she bleeding from?
I think her nose.
When you say, keep going, what do you mean by bleeding?
Like she was bleeding from her nose. I think it was all over her face. That's how I know she wasn't alive when she went in the bin, because I could hear her take her last breaths.
When she was on the couch, you could hear her take her last breaths. Where were you when this happened? When were you right beside her, or were you on top of her, or
in the doorway?
Then what happened?
I remember being in the backyard. I don't remember taking the bin. I don't remember throwing the keys away. I don't remember the truck. I didn't want to hold it back from you.
No, I appreciate it.
I didn't know how to say it. I've been trying to remember what happened.
So, You remember you told us that you were standing over top of her when you, or not over top of her, but beside her at the end of the bed. Maybe, I don't want to ruin your sandwich there, but let's just say that this is the end of the bed. This is where the sofa would be. This is the end of the bed, and she's diagonal like this on the bed, right? Pretend this is her head. Okay? And you're standing there, and you punch her 2 or 3 times, right? And she's still down on her back, right? Okay? So, that's something that's out of character for you, right? Right? That's out of character for you. Brittany says you never beat her. Never. Never. She was never afraid of that, nothing. So she must have said something to you. Or did she say something about Brittany? Made you angry?
I don't know.
Did she say something about you or about somebody that you cared about to get to that point where you're that angry?
I can't remember her saying anything.
Okay. And the next thing is she's laying there, and you're that close that you can hear her taking her last breaths, right? And why is that?
The blood, maybe.
Chris, when this is going on, you're really angry, you're upset, right? Something, whatever took place, to make you that angry. You're standing over, you say just standing over when you hear her last breaths, right? And you tell me that you're certain she's dead. And I think you know what I'm trying to tell you here. There's a reason that you know that she was dead. There's a reason that you can hear her last breaths. What else is going on right after you hit her? What else is going on, Chris? Chris, you're angry. You're really angry. You're angry enough that you, like I said earlier, you don't go around punching women. You've never punched Brittany, ever. There's no history of you going around punching women randomly. What did she say to you?
I don't know.
But you were very angry, right? You said a minute ago you were very angry. That, why else would you do that, right?
Well, I said I was stressed out.
Stressed out. But something snapped, right? So after you hit her, what happened then? Panicked again, didn't you? Chris? Panicked again, didn't you? You probably thought to yourself, I just punched a female cop. Right? And then what did you do? Chris, look at me, bud. You know what you did. You're stressed out. Things are messed up for you. Your girlfriend left you. Shit is piling up like it's all over the place. You snap, punch her, and then what happens? Talk to me, Chris. What happens then? It's going to be hard. It's hard. We all know what happened next. The reason that you can hear her last gasps, her last breaths, Chris. Why is that?
My hands are on her neck.
Yes. For how long?
I'm not sure how long.
The detectives continued to interrogate Christopher in the same manner. However, the footage was not released to the public. As a result of the continued confrontation, Christopher admitted to murdering Catherine via a flurry of punches. He emphasized the details that it was just a rush of blood and he didn't mean to end her life. This confession would usually be accepted by the detectives. However, as previously mentioned, the coroner concluded that the cause of death was strangulation. Christopher is then afforded a break in order to recover and rest. The interrogation then resumes, and the detectives attempt for a second time to uncover the whole truth.
So Chris, just not, I know it gets long taking you back, but there's little details that we have to try to figure out, okay? So we appreciate that you've been honest with us, you've been truthful with us, you're starting to remember things, it's coming back. I know it's difficult to get to those points because this isn't you, right? It happened, and you have to try to cope with that while you're telling us. But I want to go back to when she was laying on the bed, okay? You told us that you punched her in the head. I believe, was it 2 to 3 times? Okay, and then you said a couple of things. So you said to me that your hands were around her neck. Right? Remember saying that? Yeah. Can you show me how that happened? Tell me more about it. Where were you positioned?
I think I would have been still standing.
Okay. So her head again was kind of on the diagonal. You would have been standing. Did she have blood on her at that point?
I think so.
I think that pool of blood that you drew was there. Okay. And then what? Can you show me how? Can you take your hands and just actually show me how you did that? Put your water down maybe. So you were standing. So almost like if I'm her, you're standing there, and how are your hands?
Do I really have to?
You don't have to, but if you show me, we can just get a better understanding of how it happened.
You don't have to physically.
Yeah,
you can just say like this is how.
Yeah,
or show. Yeah. Demonstrate, I guess.
You don't have to like actually do it, but if you want to say like this was her neck and you want to show how it was.
I think I would have my hands like this.
Okay. So is she turned like this to you?
I think she was always facing up.
Okay, but was her head? So was it facing like this? Or would it be like if I was looking, her head would have been closest to you, correct? Like would her body have been like, her legs would have been this way and her head would have been like this?
More to the side.
Like this?
No other way.
Okay, like this? And where would...
Yeah, maybe more.
Okay, like this?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what did you do? So say I'm her. I'm like this. Where were you?
So I would have been standing over.
Okay, so is she still looking like I'm looking? Like up?
Looking up.
Okay. Do you want to show me how?
Not really.
Okay, so she would have been like this. You're standing up kind of to the side. Okay, and then you do what?
What do you mean after my hands?
No, where are your hands now? She's laying like this. You're standing to the side. How are your hands?
Like this.
Okay. And then what's happening?
She's choking.
Is she struggling? Is she moving?
I don't think she was very much at that point.
Okay. Are you putting pressure? Are you squeezing? What are you doing with your hands?
Putting pressure.
Okay. And you hear her choking?
I didn't really hear her choking when what was happening.
Okay.
Despite all of the evidence collected by forensics and the confession you've just witnessed, Christopher and his team actually pleaded not guilty on the grounds that the pair had consensual sex, which took a turn for the worst and ended in a tragic accident. As you would expect, this story was quickly debunked for multiple reasons, but the most important is that the injuries that Catherine sustained were not consistent with Christopher's version of events. As a result, Christopher Garnier was found guilty of second-degree murder and interfering with a dead body. This culminated in a life sentence.